She was young, beautiful, and exhausted from a life that had given her nothing but hardship. Poverty had been her constant companion, shadowing her every step since childhood. Each day felt like a battle for survival, a struggle to keep her head above the water while the weight of hunger and hopelessness dragged her down. She had grown up watching others live in comfort, while she counted coins to buy bread. In the mirror, she saw a face full of dreams but worn thin by reality. And then came the proposal that would change everything. When a 55-year-old billionaire, powerful, wealthy, and well-known in the business world, offered his hand in marriage, she didn't think twice. To her, this was not about love, not about a soulmate, not about romance under the stars. No, for her, it was about survival, about escape, about finally claiming the kind of life she had only ever seen from a distance. The wealth, the mansion, the luxury cars gliding through city streets, the diamond necklaces she had only seen locked away in shop windows, the glamorous lifestyle she had always dreamed of. Suddenly, it was all within reach. Her friends warned her in hushed voices. They whispered that old money often hides old secrets. They reminded her of stories, dark stories, where riches came with hidden chains. They asked her, "Are you sure? Do you really know the man you're marrying?" But she silenced them, brushing their words aside with one cold, determined thought. "This is my ticket out of misery. I will not let it slip away." And so the wedding day arrived. It was grand, extravagant, and dazzling in every sense of the word. The ballroom shimmered with golden light. The air was heavy with the fragrance of roses and champagne. Cameras flashed endlessly as journalists and guests fought to capture the moment. A string quartet played softly while the world looked on. Some guests admired her beauty and whispered about her good fortune. Others stared with judgment in their eyes, their voices dripping with disgust as they muttered words like "gold digger" under their breath. But she did not care. Their opinions meant nothing. To her, this was the golden deal she had been waiting for, the one chance to rewrite her destiny. Standing beside the billionaire, she smiled, a smile that seemed radiant on the outside, but carried unease on the inside. His presence was commanding, his tailored suit sharp, his every gesture full of control. And yet, as she glanced at him closely, a strange question gnawed at her heart. Why? Why would such a powerful man with endless choices suddenly want her? A woman half his age, with no status, no family name, no wealth of her own. Was it attraction? Was it loneliness? Or was it something else? Something he wasn't saying? The ceremony ended, the applause faded, and the celebrations rolled deep into the night. Yet the bride's heart grew heavier as the evening hours passed. The glimmer of diamonds and the sound of laughter could not silence the unease rising inside her. When the sun finally sank beyond the horizon and the wedding night arrived, she found herself face to face with the billionaire, her new husband, in the vast, silent room they now shared. And that was when she saw it. In his eyes, something she could not explain. A shadow, a weight, a mystery buried too deep to name. His gaze was cold, as though he were carrying the burden of something unspeakable. And for just a fleeting moment, she thought she saw fear. Fear in the eyes of a man who had everything the world could offer her. Fear that did not belong there. Fear that had no reason to exist. Her heart pounded, her mind spun with questions. The wealth she had married into suddenly felt less like a blessing and more like a riddle. And that unease, that chill in her chest refused to leave her. For the first time, she wondered if the whispers of her friends had been right. What was the truth about this man? Why did his presence, instead of comforting her, fill her with dread? And more importantly, what secret was he hiding behind those cold billionaire eyes? The very next day after the wedding, she stepped into the colossal mansion that was now her home. Her breath caught as her eyes swept across the grand entrance. The marble floors gleamed beneath her feet, polished so perfectly they reflected the golden light above. Giant chandeliers hung from the ceilings, spilling brilliance across the walls. Priceless works of art adorned every corner, paintings from masters she had only read about in books, sculptures so lifelike they seemed to breathe. It was everything she had dreamed of, a palace worthy of fairy tales, a place that declared wealth in every stone, every corner, every detail. And yet, as her heels echoed across the cold marble, a strange heaviness pressed down upon her chest. It was beautiful, but it did not feel alive. The silence inside was suffocating, almost unnatural, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. The air was thick with something unspoken, something she could not name. The servants moved quietly, too quietly, and when their eyes met hers, they quickly looked away. She noticed how they whispered among themselves whenever she walked past. Their voices were low, hurried, nervous. Not a single one dared to smile at her, not even the one who carried her luggage upstairs. At dinner that evening, she sat across the long dining table from her husband. The chandelier above glittered like falling stars, and the silver cutlery sparkled as if untouched. She tried to make conversation, asking him about his past, curious about the life he had lived before she entered it. Her tone was gentle, but beneath it was a need to understand, a hunger to fill the uneasy silence with truth. But he didn't answer the way she expected. Instead, he looked at her with a faint smile, the kind of smile that revealed nothing. And in a voice calm yet chilling, he said, "Some stories are better left buried." His words hung in the air like smoke, refusing to fade. She wanted to press further, to demand more, but something in his tone silenced her. She picked at her meal in silence, though her thoughts raced endlessly. That night, as the mansion sank into shadows, she lay awake in her vast bedroom. The walls loomed around her, decorated with art and gold, yet they felt more like prison bars than ornaments. The sheets were soft, the bed enormous, but sleep refused to come. Then she heard it. Footsteps. Slow, heavy, uneasy. They echoed faintly from the corridor outside her room. Her breath caught. She turned her head, expecting to see her husband returning late from some business call. But when she looked, he was not there. The space beside her was empty, the sheets untouched. Curiosity, sharp and relentless, gripped her. She slipped out of bed, her bare feet brushing against the cold marble. Carefully, she pushed open the door and stepped into the dimly lit hallway. Shadows stretched long across the floor, and the flickering light from an old lamp danced against the walls. The sound of the footsteps grew clearer as she moved forward, her heart beating louder with every step. The hallway seemed endless, the silence pressing in with every second. Finally, at the very end of the corridor, she saw it, a locked door. It stood tall, ancient compared to the rest of the mansion, its wood darkened by age. The footsteps had stopped, but the sense of presence still lingered, as if something waited just beyond. Her hand lifted instinctively, wanting to touch the handle to see what lay behind. But before her fingers could reach it, a soft gasp startled her. A servant stood there, his face pale, his body trembling. His voice was barely above a whisper as he spoke. "Madam, please, never go near this door." His eyes darted nervously, as though even speaking of it was dangerous. He bowed his head and hurried away, leaving her frozen in place. The locked door loomed in front of her, silent, unyielding, and suffocating. Her curiosity only deepened. Why was it locked? What was hidden behind it? And why did even the servants tremble at the thought of it? She returned to her room that night with more questions than answers, her heart unsettled, her mind restless. The mansion that had promised her dreams now whispered with secrets she was not meant to know. The young bride could no longer resist. The whispers in the mansion, the glances of the servants, the unanswered questions, All of it had been clawing at her mind since the night she first saw that locked door. And then came the storm. It was one of those nights when thunder shook the windows, when rain hammered against the glass as if trying to break inside, when the howling wind seemed to echo the unease in her chest. The mansion, usually too silent, now felt alive with the sound of the storm. And within that chaos, an opportunity arose. Her husband had left the house for business, and the servants had retreated to their quarters, leaving the corridors empty. The air was thick with tension, but also with temptation. Her heart pounded as she crept into her husband's study. The room smelled of leather and old books, lined with shelves stacked neatly with files, papers, and memories of a life before her. She searched desperately, her fingers trembling as they slid across drawers and cabinets. And then, there it was, a small key, tucked carefully inside a box, hidden beneath papers, as if meant never to be found. She held it tightly in her hand, its cold metal burning against her palm, her breath sharp and uneven. With shaking hands, she made her way down the hallway. The storm raged outside, lightning illuminating the path as shadows danced along the walls. When she reached the end of the corridor, the forbidden door loomed before her, tall and unyielding. Her fingers hesitated at the lock. For a moment, she almost turned back, but curiosity had grown into obsession. She needed to know. The key slid in with a quiet click. The lock turned, the sound impossibly loud in the silence of the mansion. Slowly, she pushed the door open. The room inside was nothing like she expected. It was frozen in time. Dust floated in the air, disturbed by her entrance, and the heavy smell of age lingered all around. Old photographs lined the walls, black and white images of a woman whose face stopped her heart. She looked eerily familiar, almost like a reflection of herself, only older. Her beauty was striking, her smile haunting, her eyes alive with something that now seemed lost. On the table lay a diary, its leather cover worn, its pages yellowed. Beside it stood a glass case, and inside it, carefully preserved, was a wedding dress. The sight made her blood run cold. She realized, in an instant, what no one had ever told her. Her husband had been married before. But why had no one spoken of this woman? Why had her name never been mentioned, not even once? Her fingers trembled as she opened the diary, flipping through its pages. The handwriting was delicate, almost elegant, but the words told stories of unease, loneliness, and hidden fears. She read faster, desperate to understand, the storm outside thundering as if in rhythm with a racing pulse. And then she reached the final entry, her breath caught. The writing stopped abruptly, as if cut short by something sudden, something violent. The last words on the page were chilling. Words that seemed to leap out of the diary and strike her heart with ice. If anything happens to me, it will be his doing. The diary slipped from her hands, landing with a soft thud on the dusty floor. She staggered back, her chest tightening, her mind spinning. 20 years ago, the writing had ended. 20 years ago, the woman in the photographs had vanished from the story of the mansion. And now the bride realized she might be living in the shadow of a ghost, a shadow of a wife who had been erased. Lightning flashed through the window, illuminating the wedding dress in the glass case, its white fabric glowing like a silent accusation. The storm roared, but the loudest sound was her own heartbeat, pounding in her ears. She whispered to herself, her voice shaking, her body frozen in fear. What had really happened here? What really happened to the billionaire's first wife? The young bride had never seen him like this before. The arrogant billionaire, the man who commanded with silence and power, now looked fragile, vulnerable, almost afraid. Before she could ask another question, before her lips could form the words demanding to know what truth he carried, everything changed. The mansion went dark. The lights flickered once, then vanished, plunging the vast corridors into shadow. Silence pressed in for a moment, suffocating, before the storm outside roared louder, rattling the windows as if nature itself had chosen that moment to bear witness. And then, his whisper. Close, cold, trembling. She still haunts me. The words slipped through the darkness like a knife, chilling her to the bone. Her eyes darted wildly, searching for him, but the shadows swallowed everything. A sudden breeze swept across the room, icy against her skin. She gasped and turned toward the windows, but they were all tightly shut, not a single crack for the storm to slip through, and yet the air grew colder, heavier, as though unseen hands had passed by. Her heart pounded in her chest, each beat louder than the thunder outside. She felt the weight of eyes upon her, though she could see no one. The silence stretched, broken only by the echo of her own shallow breaths. Was this real? Or was it a game? Her husband's figure emerged faintly in the dimness as lightning split across the sky. For a fleeting second, his face looked pale, almost ghost-like, his eyes wide with something between terror and guilt. Was he acting, or was he truly haunted? The young bride pressed her back against the wall, her thoughts spiraling. If his first wife had vanished, if her final words in the diary had warned of his hand in her fate, was she now witnessing the unraveling of a guilty man's conscience? Or was the truth far darker than even murder? The storm howled louder, the mansion groaned with age, and the young bride realized she was trapped in a place where every shadow could carry an answer or a threat. Was the billionaire guilty of murder, or was something far darker haunting him? The final act began where fear consumed her entire being. Her body trembled with every step as she descended deeper into the mansion's hidden corridors. Driven by a need for answers that fear could no longer silence, the whispers of the past, the diary, the forbidden door, the confession in the dark, all pressed upon her, pushing her toward the truth. Her hands brushed along cold stone walls as she ventured downward, the faint flicker of her candle casting long shadows. The air grew damp, heavy with the scent of secrets buried for decades. And then she found it. A hidden chamber beneath the mansion. Inside lay boxes covered in dust, shelves lined with objects that seemed too personal to be forgotten. Letters bound with faded ribbons, their ink smeared by time. Jewelry, delicate and broken, pieces that once belonged to a woman whose memory had been erased. And then, most chilling of all, fragments of belongings that spoke of a life abruptly ended. A hairpin, a scarf, shoes too small to have ever been hers. Her chest tightened as she realized what she was holding. Evidence. Memories. Traces of a woman who had vanished. A woman the world was told had simply run away. But here, beneath the billionaire's home, her existence remained carved into silence. And then she froze. Behind her, footsteps. Slow, heavy, inevitable. The young bride turned sharply, and there he was. The billionaire stood in the dim light of the underground chamber, his tall figure casting a shadow that seemed to swallow the entire room. For a moment, neither spoke. Only the storm above groaned through the walls, echoing like a distant cry. Then she saw them, tears in his eyes. His voice cracked, stripped of its usual authority, reduced to something broken and human. "I didn't kill her," he whispered. His words trembled in the stale air. "I couldn't save her." Her breath caught. She wanted to scream, to demand answers, to run. But his expression, haunted, shattered, held her still. She discovered a secret, he continued, his eyes falling to the ground as though the weight of it was too heavy to bear. You see, the billions, they didn't come from business alone. They came from something far older, something far more sinister. His gaze lifted to hers, and in that moment she saw the depth of the curse he carried. A society, he confessed, a secret society that demands silence at any cost, and she tried to expose it. The words struck her harder than the storm outside. Everything made sense now. The fear in the servant's eyes, the forbidden door, the whispers that followed her through the mansion. The money, the power, the glamour, it wasn't fortune. It was blood-stained wealth earned through alliances that demanded loyalty, secrecy, and sacrifice. Her mind raced, her pulse hammering in her ears. The young bride realized she was not a wife. She was a prisoner. Another pawn in a game far older than her marriage, far deadlier than love or greed. The mansion wasn't a home, it was a trap. A golden cage built to lure her in, just as it had lured the woman before her. She stared at him, her throat dry, her voice barely a whisper. Then why me? Why bring me here? His eyes softened, but the answer was colder than the chamber itself. Because the curse must continue. The society demands it. And now you know too much. Her candle flickered violently, the shadows closing in as though the mansion itself hungered for her silence. She looked at the belongings scattered around her feet, the jewelry, the letters, the remnants of a woman erased, and then she saw her own reflection in the glass of the case before her. She was becoming the next story, the next memory buried beneath stone and silence. Her heart raced, every instinct screaming at her to flee, but the billionaire's presence blocked the only way out, his figure looming like a gatekeeper between life and death. The truth was now hers to bear, and with it a chilling realization. The wealth, the glamour, the mansion, it had never been a blessing. It was a curse that consumed every woman who entered its walls. Now that she knows the truth, will she escape with her life, or will she become the next secret buried in his mansion?
I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe my channel, and also share this video with your family and friends. Let's see the view of weather looking so great. There are many clouds in the sky because today weather lives like enjoyable, and I make video for you. If this video give you a lesson, please like and share this video with your family and friends, because they give lesson from my video. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.